Jack off. Jack. Yeah. Middle camera?
I didn't promote it, but oh well.
Hey Sam, what up? You're now tuned into the Break Free Podcast Show. Boy, wicked beat.
Blang, blang, blang.
Break free. Worldwide. Break free. Worldwide. Break free. Worldwide. Break free. Worldwide.
Yo, what's up, world? Welcome to episode number 3737 of the Break Free Worldwide podcast.
Yes.
And today we are here to pump you up because the topic is training and B-boy, B-girl training, what everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
How do you train? What do you do at home in your garage? How do you do that? How many push-ups
Keep going,
do you
Jeremy,
do?
tell him.
How many times do you do those push-ups?
Yeah.
Do you do the reverse push-ups?
Yeah.
Do you do a flare after your push-up? Well, we're here to clear up those questions today, right, Moy?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
right. So,
how
I
many
mean, well, it depends. It depends on how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that
Well, let's-
concludes our podcast today.
Now let's talk about it because I think there's a lot of misconceptions with training as well, though, too, because a lot of people think that you have to kind of go crazy and train every single day to be
Yeah,
top
yeah.
level, but
Quality over quantity.
yeah, but you know, it's proper training, it's proper dieting, it's proper resting, all of those things combined, and I think that's really important. So a lot of the younger generation of breakers they're trying to jump in and dive in and just like go.
It's like a trendy. It's like a trendy
They
thing.
think
now,
they're Rocky, and it's not like that. You know what I mean? You have to really find the amount of good sleep, good training, good eating, and all that combined. And I think that's what really creates a top level athlete. But
Would you agree? I think what I had to learn is that my approach to training had to be similar or exactly the same as my approach to breaking. And what I mean by that is like you have to approach it in ways that challenges yourself. You have to be you have to factor in ingenuity. Like you have to keep it original, and you can't like, especially with training and like your own body, you can't do the same thing as somebody else.
Well,
It's a journey where you have to find trial and error, like what works best for you, and also figure out what you're trying to do and what your
Yeah.
goal is
well,
before anything else.
you definitely have to make it fun because not everybody wants to wake up and go to the gym. Not everybody wants to wake up and do 100 push-ups or whatever you want to call it, right? So you got to find a way to keep yourself motivated through it because just like breaking or any other art form, it's self-motivated. So once you implement fitness, you have to kind of be able to upkeep that. And
Yeah.
so most people dive into something, let's just say it's January 1st, right, where everybody makes their New Year's resolutions and they're tied to the gym for the first month, and all of a sudden February comes and they've done given up. And I said most people give up something because they're burnt out or they think they've had enough and they didn't find a way to get creative or have fun with it. And so I think with us it's a little bit easier. I think we have an edge in terms of like just being artists and using breaking as kind of the foundation. We're able to get a little bit more creative with implementing breaking into fitness, and so that's why we've created a lot of the fitness drills and the breaking drills in the past that a lot of people are still using. That people are using today, not still using.
What year did we first release that video?
Man,
that got really good numbers.
that
Like
has to-
2014, 2013.
Nah, I think
Early?
before. I want to say like 2012.
Yeah.
You know.
I think if you want to look it up, it's under Have a Coral Training.
Yeah.
Right?
No, break free training.
Break
I
free
think.
training?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On the Have a Coral account. Or it might be, I'm not sure. But
I
that's-
think it's on an old break free account that we had. It's somewhere on YouTube.
we were going hard. We were really going hard every
Yeah.
single day.
but the idea is that we have the edge because we're able to be a little bit more creative with the fitness side. So a lot of people jump into fitness, they kind of plug and play to the systems that already exist, right? And so they plug and play to that, and eventually they get burnt out. You know, it gets boring. You know, so but you know what? Fitness is that though. Fitness is it has to be a consistent regimen.
Yeah.
To see the results that you want.
Consistency.
You have to have consistency. So
Yeah.
you can't keep changing it all the time.
Yeah.
You have to stay with a program for at least 6 weeks for your like mentality or your body to really adjust to it and see proper results before you actually change to something else. There's a lot of people that I've seen go into the gym. When I first started lifting weights, they would go into the gym and just pick up the 100-pound dumbbells like You know what I mean? Like
No,
that's
yeah.
that's gonna do it.
Yeah,
You don't just eat salad one day and think that you're gonna lose 5-10 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, and vice versa. You don't eat bad one day if you're dieting and all of a sudden it's gonna mess up your diet. No,
Yeah.
it's a matter of patterns and consistency.
Yeah, I think too it's a good topic and a good way to address within our community. And a lot of people talk about this is like the balance between artistry and athlete, and the balance between sport and art, which is a huge topic and whatnot. But the way that I like to bring training into the picture, and I think it's like it's an explanation for this debate. Like, and I don't think it's, as we talked about on here before, it's not about one or the other. It's about a balance between both.
Right.
And I think with breaking training specifically, or dancer training in general, you have to figure out, like, I look at it as an enhancement to my artistry. Like, we as dancers, we as athletes, our body is the medium. Like, you've heard it before, like, our body is the paintbrush and the floor is the canvas. You know, like, that's the metaphor that people have used before. So how do you improve, and how do you basically get control of your body to do whatever you want with it? You know, like, you have to train up your body, and you have to get comfortable and know how to use your body. And again, everyone has their own different body type and own different mentality, so your training is going to be different from somebody else. But like you said, it has to be consistent, and you have to approach it in a way that you are excited about, something that you know is manageable and sustainable, and knowing that, like, this is just going to be a boost and enhancement to my art and what I do. I think that's the best way to approach it as an artist.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then especially too, it's like with breaking where it's at today, and we've talked about this last podcast about, like, just competition kind of being at the forefront, at the top level of where breaking is going. You can't just practice. Like, you have to be able to maintain or even grow, like, your strength, your stamina, your endurance, and all these other things. And so it's like, if you keep practicing, that's cool. You're just going to keep getting good. But at the end of the day, how long is that going to last? How long does good last?
Yeah.
You know? And I think that can go with any art form. You know, it's like you got to find different techniques and different things to be able to create something that's going to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I look at breaking the same way. You know, like, we don't get any younger. We're only getting older. So if you find a way or a system or something that you need to implement that's going to help you do this, not forever, but for as long as you think that you can take this, you know, you got to do something different. And I think that the fitness side is really important. And I think in the very beginning when we started doing it, and even to this day, there are some people that really hate on the approach, you know, and I get it from an artist's perspective, you know.
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah, especially in the beginning. Now it's more accepted. Yeah, for sure.
And trendy. But shout out to, like, the people who were doing it around the same time with us, like Hat Solo and Focus and Cypher and
Flowmaster.
Flowmaster, been doing it for so long.
Yeah,
like,
forever.
That's his forte, you know. Like, these people inspired us, and I think they're really the pioneers when it comes to the physical aspect and the training side of it. You know, I know Master Monkeys, Jeromsky, they have a program up there.
Yeah. So it's really dope to see, like, people really doing it more. It's like what we were talking about early on. It was really just kind of hated on. No one was really accepting the fact of like bridging these two worlds together, right? But it really makes sense when you really kind of sit down and think about it. It's like breaking is so physically demanding that if you're not giving it anything else, it's really just going to be a creative place, which is great. But at the same time, as a competitor or on a competitive level, that's not always going to win, you know, because your body has to have an upkeep with everything that's changing.
Perspective-wise, I look at it like it's part of my foundation. You know, for B-boys and B-girls, whenever they hear the word foundation, a lot of people associate that with just, like, footwork steps and basic moves and things like that. But for me, and even when I teach, I consider, like, my tools, like my physical tools, as part of my foundation. And, like, that's what I use to dance and build up my style. So what I mean by that is, like, the way I'm able to hold a handstand, like how comfortable I am in a handstand or on one hand or in a baby freeze or like in a squat position, like that's all part of foundation on a really, really basic level. So the more comfortable and the more strength and conditioning I build up in all these areas, like that just enhances my foundation and allows me to do more as an artist. That's my approach and my perspective.
And I know this sounds crazy, but from like let's just from a scientific perspective, right? If you really understand like what it takes to do certain moves, certain steps, what the body requires, how much strength, how much energy, like you can really, I truly believe this, you can really move up the ladder a little bit faster if you're really focusing on on why moves require the leg to do this or the arm to do that, right? And that's big in training, right? When you understand certain things. That's why even when you pick up some weights, you can't just go in there and lift weights. You have to understand the technique, because then you're not going to develop the muscle, you know, that you're looking to get. And so it's the same thing with breaking. You got to learn how to develop the form, the steps, the technique, because then it's not going to look right. Yeah. So you have to be able to understand both worlds, and that's why the training topic is really, really important.
Yeah. Something that I've been teaching the break free students, the champions class this year, and going into the latter part of 2019. One big thing that I tell them every single class, and when I drill them, and for B-boys and B-girls, I think the most important outlook to have is that control is strength. Like, control is power. Yeah. I think the misconception a lot of people can get, even from an outside perspective, is like, to do the moves that we do, or to do these crazy, dynamic, aesthetically pleasing moves, it takes a lot of strength. Like, man, you must be really strong. And yeah, it does take strength, but I think the best way to look at it is, again, we're controlling our bodies. Like, control is strength. Yeah, control is the real power. Like, we're not trying to max out and push the most weight. Exactly. You're trying to push your own weight, and everyone has different weights. So how are you going to control your body? And I think through control, that establishes the real power. And I think if you think about it like that, I think you start to effectively craft the way you train and the way you approach strength and conditioning in a better way. Yeah.
Off the top of your head, like, who can you think of right now that have really showcased the level of, like, athleticism within their breaking, outside of, you know, their own originality and creativity, but, like, off the top of your head, like, if you can name any people that really have focused on this, whether they've promoted it or not, but just through looking at their breaking.
Besides us,
like, who you think?
The first person that comes to mind is definitely Zeku. Yeah. Shout out to Zeku, Monster Energy Breakers. But I mean, you can just take a look at his content and what he pushes out, and just his beliefs. Like, you genuinely know that he's in this, and I think he fully embraces the role of an athlete within this culture.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's why he sees success, is because he fully embraces and he owns that role. He says, I'm an athlete, and I love that, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. And I think that's a good example. This, not to go into another topic of it, but like the art versus sport thing. Like, key players can exist on each side. Like, you can be an artist and fully own that role, but there can also be somebody that exists in this culture that's an athlete, and they can fully own that and love it too.
For example, like a direct contrast to that, I think Menno. Like, Menno, I talk to Menno a lot every time I get to see him at events, stuff like that. He is 1,000% into his training. You know, maybe it may be a different style of training, but he really does focus on training, and he focuses on his eating habits and building his endurance. And, you know, from an artist perspective, we would look at it like, this dude's an artist, right? Because I know how Menno trains and how he responds to the competitions that he has coming up and things like that. I know this guy is an athlete as well, because he does a good job of reinforcing his artistry with the training. Yeah. And so I think he's definitely that contrast between someone like Zeku, who makes it very transparent of being an athlete, where, you know, Menno is what people would think more of an artist than an athlete, but at the same time, I think he's as much of an athlete that he is, you know, how we see him as an artist.
And both work.
And both work good. And that's what I wanted to get to the next thing, is just that, you know, we don't have to hate on each of these I guess foundations, right?
Divisive.
Yeah, we can't be divisive about it, but, you know, it's just really putting your spin on it, putting your own approach, and finding a way to make it work for you. And that's the thing, which I was going to get to next, is like diets. A lot of people always talk about like different diets and that to implement in part of your training and your regimen and things like that. And so every diet works. It's really what fits you best, right? You're going to argue with somebody that they think that this is better and that is better, but really, like, the best experience is going out and figuring it out, and what is best for you, you know? Yeah. And so it's like, we need to get to a point where we just have a level of understanding for all that. And I think that there's some breakers who may be against it at the same time, but just find a way to really just sit down and be like, okay, cool, well, maybe let me give this a shot. Yeah. You know, because I was at that point when I used to live in LA. I remember Flo would, you know, hit me up, and he'd be like, hey, Moy, 10 a.m. training at my house. And he goes, and then practice at 12. And at the time, I didn't know the difference. Yeah. I really didn't know, because we
some people still might not.
Yeah, we came up knowing training and practice is kind of the same thing. Yeah. And then I was like, well, I'll be there at 12. I'll be there for the practice because I wanted to skip the training.
Yeah.
And you know, and I would skip it a few times, but then, you know, it got to a point where I was like, I had no choice and I had to get involved. And so like, that's where I got my first kind of boost of inspiration was from Flo.
Yeah.
But Flo was really more on the side of like separating the two. Like he would really just do like this whole fitness round,
Yeah.
and then, you know, then it would be breaking, you know, and then that's where it really kind of intrigued me to like kind of combine the both, and that's what you and I started doing. And I'm not saying Flo didn't do that, but I'm just saying it was just kind of like
he took what he taught you and applied it in
exactly.
your own way.
But what I'm saying is, you know, I was even at that point. Even now, I think people probably know me more now that for my training than a lot of other things. But I was to a point too where I hated it too. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But then I got a taste of it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. This can only help. It can't hurt. You know.
Yeah. I think a good what I had to learn too, whenever we were getting heavy into that in the early 2010s, is I ended up tearing my meniscus because I was going so hard, and like I think that's a good example.
And
to
you're
you.
young.
I was young. I was
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what my age was.
You're still young.
Yeah, but that was particularly around the time there was a big competition here in Houston. It was one of the biggest competitions I'd done at the time, and I tore my meniscus a week before it happening. And I had to wrap up my knee, and like I still pushed it through. But I know at that time, like I was going too hard into it, and I think a lot of people experience it now, especially being younger.
Right.
You know, you're young, you think you're invincible, so you go and you push and you push and you push and you push,
Yeah.
and you don't know what your limits are. And I had to learn, you know, like I had to learn after that. I had to switch up even my form, like the way I was breaking. I knew I could look back and see, like, okay, that's why I tore my meniscus. Because when I did my footwork, I wasn't properly.
Well, that's why
doing it.
technique is so important.
That's why technique is so important. But like, that's a good example, and I tell that story for the people out there that might get inspired by, let's just say, us or anybody else, and like go and push it and go hard. Like, you got to know your limits, and the other best way to put it is it's a long game. It's not a short game. You got to think about tomorrow,
well,
the second month,
that's
the
why,
third month,
that's
the
why
second
they
year, the
say
third
you
year,
have
the
to make
fourth
it a
year.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like it really is. And so even to this day, it's like I train, but I also don't train all the time. You know what I mean? But it's part of my lifestyle so much that like if I miss 2 or 3 days, I'm probably gonna hit the next 4 days hard, you know, and make sure that I'm there consistently. But like it's just so part of my world that this is what I know. It's I've become this, and it's become me, you know. And so it's like when I do miss it, I do miss it. Like I genuinely, emotionally, like, dang, I missed the gym. I got to get back on it, you know.
On that note, though, I've learned that it's also really important because, like, us as dancers, our mentality and our mental state is really, really key to our performance and how we dance. So let's just say you do develop a regimen and like you start obsessing over it, and you do miss a day and you let that really like bring you down. Like that's gonna affect the way. So that's gonna offset any gains that you did make physically.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
if your mental is off and like let's just say you got stronger and you got faster and you got more stamina, but you miss one day and you're like, oh man.
You can't feel bad for that.
You can't feel bad for that. You got to be comfortable.
And
like,
to be quite honest, even if you're not missing any days, you're gonna have good days and bad days still. So even at some of the days where they're bad, you just gotta understand and listen to your body, because most of the times when we have bad days, it's because we're tired. We're tired and we're not being responsive to what our body's telling us. And so we need to actually rest. And that's why, you know, you hear a lot of people say that rest is just as important, if not more important than training. So that's why it's not always about, like I said, hitting the gym or training as hard as you can. It's about finding that balance.
I think you also have to have a specific goal too. Like you gotta have specific goal or goals.
Yeah, because then what are you working for?
Yeah, you can't. And general training just to like maintain and get stronger is great too, and you should that should be in it, and that's key in developing a lifestyle. But you gotta have specific goals. Like, what are you specifically training? You know, I could share personally. Like recently, the past 2 months, I've really been working on like just being able to be comfortable on my hands. So really doing handstand training and like learning how to balance.
You look great on your hands, by the way.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
No,
I've
you've
been
been
training
awesome.
hard the past 2 months. But I really want to work towards that. So on top of my general maintenance and conditioning and strength, that's one of my goals. And I want to get better on my weak areas that I feel like, which I've assessed as like power moves or like just being comfortable in my hands at the end of the day. So like that's what I've addressed, and that's my goal as to what I'm working to, and I have specific goals within that, and that really makes you direct and craft your training and know what you're working to.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to feel lost. You don't want to feel aimless within your training or your dance.
You're spot on. I think that, just like I said right now, it's like, what are you working for if you don't have a goal? You know, goals help, they guide us, you know. And even if you don't hit that goal, at least you have a path. You have a path to work towards. And, you know, one of my goals is just to be able to move. Like, I don't want to get to a point where I'm just too stiff to not be able to do the things that I've done in the past. I can still do every single thing that I do, you know, but it's just more of like, I'm just cautious. I'm just cautious now, and I'm careful about what I do. I'm not gonna do it if my body's not feeling it. You know what I mean? And so that's another part of our training too. Is like you gotta be cautious about what you do. You know?
Do you ever watch people break some people's styles or the way they do moves, and like they're hitting their moves, but their form, you could tell it's like it's damaging their body.
Yeah, man. It like it makes me cringe.
Yeah,
you know, I watch people and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
You know, if you just do
Long
this,
day.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
man. Yeah.
no,
I think about it like this too, and I might be biased in a certain way or whatever, but I think about like, are you able to do that move on concrete?
yeah.
You know? Or
Yeah.
like a floor that's not padded.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where this dance was created, and it's like, yeah, and then even form wise, relating it to me personally, I look at my old footage and I could just tell like I wasn't even just thinking about it. And I'm not, every time I get in, I'm not consciously thinking about not injuring myself, but I just fixed my form and I spent time like understanding basic positions, you know, like what we call at break free and what we teach as a home position, which is just sitting on your toes for footwork, you know, like what's the proper way to do that? Because that's an unnatural position. And like the reality is footwork is really bad for your knees. You're putting all that. So how do you properly balance that with being able to still be on your hands and put enough weight on your hands and use your entire body, you know?
Yeah, or breaking on concrete is bad.
Yeah.
Running on concrete, jogging on concrete.
Yep.
The hard floors that we dance on, it's actually bad for our bodies, to be quite honest. And I think that's why it's even more important to, again, be cautious and don't always feel like you have to prove something or force yourself to go out just for the sake of, let's just say you want to look good or you're trying to impress. Like, nah.
Yeah.
You know, I was at a school right now speaking, and I know they wanted me to perform, but I just wasn't ready to perform. I was there to speak. So mentally, I'm there to speak, you know, but they're all, you know, as a dancer, they always want to see us dance. So I made it a point to say, like, I'm not going to dance, you know, because...
At least done some windmills.
No. Then I got a Gucci shoe fly out and hit somebody in the crowd. And, you know what I'm saying? I can get sued now. I don't want to get sued.
At least some windmills, bro. At least.
So, again,
CC.
I get hurt most of the time when I force myself to do something that I'm not supposed to do at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and I
How many times have you seen somebody do something stupid?
I'm telling you, I get hurt doing the stupidest things. Or dancing when I'm not supposed to dance because I'm just trying to be funny.
Yeah.
You know? And I just don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah, another thing form-wise that I think is a good way to look at it and the perspective I try to teach to the students is like, I consider every single move from the most basic to the most advanced to be full body.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're not, even if it's just a top rock step, which most people might think is like all legs, like no, you got to be able to know how to posture yourself and stand, and let's just say it's like a one-handed freeze, you know.
Yeah.
You think it's all this, but no, like how are you posturing, how is your hips, how is your toes, like
it all plays a role.
That's what form is.
Yeah.
Every single thing you do in this dance is full body, and if you don't pay attention to that, then you have the risk of getting injured.
I used to hate when people say, oh, you could do flares because you have a strong upper body, and I'm like, man, flares, I feel like it's more core than it is upper body, you know.
You got flares because you got square butt, like SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah, I guess so.
The rectangle allows it to.
That's a hater comment. Well, I want to shout everybody out that's tuning in. Enrique, the Break Center.
Yep. So Sammy, Exodus,
Christian,
Jeremy
No
is
Index,
hot when he dances.
Peter Babineau, Jesse Rodriguez.
Not Recon. Jesse Rodriguez.
Yeah, Jesse Rodriguez.
He said, "What up? This is Jesse, not
what to
Recon."
do, Recon?
Last time we got confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But in conclusion, 100 push-ups a day and you'll be straight. Yeah.
And rest.
Squats.
Rest a lot.
Yeah, squats. Don't
Rest
forget
a lot.
It's not all chest, it's not all arms, it's legs
And
too.
if you need a little boost of energy, you can always go to your local convenience store and get some Monster Energy.
Yes. And power moves is all about
Power moves. If you guys want to learn your power moves, you got to train.
It's all about power, okay? Remember that, guys.
Power moves.
Shout
That
out
was
to-
the Vietnamese side of you that just came out. beating me. That you're beating me.
I want to feature my wife on the show. Baby, come forward, please.
Come over, sit next to me.
Come sit.
Kelly. Come on.
Come sit next to me. Shout out to our sponsors, Monster Energy.
Kelly Pena.
Our wives, Kelly and Roxanne. Those are our sponsors, too. Shout out to Houston Media Source. Our topic next week, we're doing topics every single week, and we want you to submit topics, too. So if you're out there, submit some topics, DM us on breakfreeworldwide.com. Follow us. And we'll see you next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Bye.
Bye. Peace. What if we
Have you ever
said?
wanted to have your own TV show? We can make that happen at Houston Media Source. When you walk in the door, all you need is an idea. We have everything you need. Studios, cameras, lights, microphones, and more. All professional quality and state-of-the-art. Get started by attending one of our free orientation sessions every Monday at 6 p.m. at our studios at 410 Roberts near Minute Maid Park. Get more information online at hmstv.org. Make your voice heard with Houston Media Source.